Hello there, and welcome to English with Monty. We're on to episode number 61, and I have Gideon. And how are you doing, Gideon? How are you? Nice to see you.
Doing fine, thank you, John.
This episode is going to be how to improve your pronunciation. And you told me that you've recently done a video on that. So it looks like you're going to be an expert. You're going to know
Okay,
everything there is to
I'm
know.
I'm an expert. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've done quite a few videos on pronunciation. But I wouldn't.
Mhm.
It's not really strange as it may seem. That's not my super skill, but I know enough because I've done quite a few videos and done research, and I've been teaching it for 20 years. So I have some knowledge,
Mhm.
and you do too, I imagine.
I have a reasonable amount. Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's something that I probably shied away from. Yeah, I didn't feel so comfortable doing it in my early years as as a teacher. But yeah, I think over the last 5 or even 10 years, I've probably got a bit more into it. Um,
Okay.
because I mean, it is something that obviously a lot of people who speak English or are learning English, it's a requirement that they're always looking for, isn't it? Really, to some extent, sound a bit more like a native speaker. And I suppose we've always spoken about the idea that you don't have to sound like a native speaker, do you? I mean, you know, you're. I suppose this is the starting point, isn't it? It's not necessary to do what we're going to talk about, but we're going to give you some advice as
Yeah,
to how you can improve upon certain elements. Because I think if you have your own accent, that's still a positive thing, right? But you
absolutely.
can you can obviously improve upon certain elements, and this is what we're going to do to help.
Uh, Absolutely. I don't like the term actually sound like a native speaker, even
Mm,
though I probably used it myself. So I'm very hypocritical because I don't think the aim is sound like a native speaker. Maybe for a few people, that's their goal. But for most people, for 99%, for the 99%, the objective should be to you know, clear, speak clearly and to be understood and to be no ambiguity in the what you say, and that should be the objective. I think
mm.
nobody cares if you've got um, a slight non-native accent. If you sound like you come from the country where you're from. In fact, it's a good thing. We like it. If you got whatever an Italian accent or a French accent or a I don't know whatever a Korean accent, it sounds nice
Yeah,
and it's part of your identity. There's no point losing it. So yeah, make it crystal clear what you say, but you don't need to sound like a native.
that's true, isn't it? But I suppose there's to some extent there's this idea, isn't it, in people's heads. So yeah, I guess we're steering people away from that, but at the same time, giving you advice as to sound clearer, as you say. And yeah, it is lovely, isn't it, to hear people with their own native accents speaking English, and it's
Yeah,
always good to have that. I personally think. I mean, I think if you speak to somebody who is from a country that the native language is not English and they sound like a native speaker, it's a little bit weird, isn't it, in a way?
yeah, yeah. A little bit, yeah. I mean, it's okay to say you can reduce your accent. That's fine.
Hmm.
But to sound like it, also it's very difficult once you've entered your teenage years to end up sounding like a native. It's hardly ever happens as well. I will say
Yeah,
never
sure.
happens, but you can always recognize somebody who's learned English after the age of, I don't know, about 15, because they'll have a slight accent, don't you think?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's true, isn't it? I mean, I seem to remember around about 13 is the age, isn't it?
It
That
could be, yeah.
your brain kind of forms in a way that is quite difficult to get beyond that. I mean, of course, it is possible, but it will take a lot more practice, a lot more effort after that point, really. But
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah. But as long as people are aware of that fact, I think if you're really getting into English and you're in your 20s or 30s or older, then yeah, it potentially makes it a bit more difficult, doesn't it, to get beyond that. But yes, you shouldn't look to get to that point of being a native, it is really about sounding clearer, isn't it?
Absolutely. Would
Okay,
agree with
so
that.
yes, definitely. So I've got a couple of things using kind of Preply and the British Council, and but first of all, maybe I mean, if you've probably had a very quick look at both of these, are there any there that you've focused on yourself and you feel as if they are better than others? What would you say in terms of your experience and what you have talked about recently in your video, maybe?
Okay, so I'm looking at the list here that you've given me here, and I think it's generally good advice. It's very general advice. It's just things that you can do, like um, one thing people, which is important in English, maybe less so in some other languages, but learning the phonetic script
Hmm.
will help. You think it's not going to help, you think this is hard work. It's not that hard. And it will help. And every time you check a word in the dictionary, if you look at the phonetic symbols as well, that will help.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's probably a good starting point, isn't it? And it's probably the point at which people don't generally start, isn't it? Because I suppose, I mean, I guess this is probably true to say, I mean, just the languages that I'm familiar with is that obviously because English is not phonetic, it means that we have to use phonetics, really, doesn't it? I suppose that's
yeah,
the idea.
yeah,
Um, but obviously, at least my experience with well, fairly limited experience with certain languages, they don't have that because they don't need it, right? In the sense that, okay, yes, there's maybe one or two sounds that don't look how they sound, but in English, it's so important to look at the phonetic script because there are so many instances where things don't look how they sound, right?
yeah, absolutely. But although even if you learn the phonetic symbols, it only helps with individual words. It
Hmm.
doesn't help with the intonation, with the sentence stress, which is so important in English.
Hmm.
So it will help with individual words, and that's which is also very important.
Yeah,
The
but
example they give here is like enough, like the OUGH sound. I mean, there's no way you can guess that
mhm.
how it's going to be pronounced without learning it. So check the phonetics.
Yeah, I mean, it is really important, isn't it? And I suppose, well, it talks about here, right? We have 40 different sounds, whereas we've got 26 different letters. So yeah, looking at the phonetic symbol in terms of enough, as you say, you're not going to, yeah, you're not going to, if you're completely alien to English, you're never going to guess that, are you? You'd pronounce it as inugi or something like that.
Yeah, and I know also well, I taught in Spain, and every day I would hear people saying um, breakfast,
Hmm.
breakfast. I said, no, it's not break, it's brook. No, it's not. It's breakfast, breakfast. It's not break because yeah, but this word is break. No, no, it's not. But it's not pronounced like that. It's called break. Oh, yeah. So that's why you've got to check the phonetics, and also it's important in English. I think this is one of the things that I recommend, probably you too, John,
Hmm.
is the spelling is a trap. It's like this evil people wrote the spelling to trap you, and it's a war between you and the spelling. So don't let them trap you. And the way to avoid that is to listen to the words and not look at the words first. So whenever I teach the pronunciation of a word in English, I try not to show the uh, it written down. Okay,
Hmm.
I get them to repeat before they see it written, and then because if once they see it written, it's stuck in their mind. They think they know how to spell it. So if I say, okay, repeat after me, breakfast, breakfast, breakfast. Now I'm going to show you how it's written. And afterwards, that's, oh, that's okay. But if you show them first, they're going to say break fast.
Wow. I think that's a good way of approaching things, isn't it, really? Because as you say, they're going to try and read it how it looks, aren't they? Related to what they already know. Because I guess people are saying break because we do have the word break, right? As in you
Yeah,
break a
yeah,
glass. So it seems a bit strange, doesn't it, that a word that looks the same is pronounced a bit differently. So I think
yeah,
that,
yeah,
that's definitely a good approach, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah. Definitely listen. Don't look. That's a good
Yes.
starting point. Listen,
Yeah,
don't look.
that is a good starting point. Listen, don't look. Okay, so that's our first tip. I like that
Yeah.
tip. That's a very good one. Okay, and here they're talking about well, listening and writing.
Okay.
Do you think that's a good idea? So it's I guess it's obviously following something and seeing if you get it correct. So I suppose with lyrics or something that's like a film or an audio file, so something you can look back at, isn't it really, to
Mhm.
compare what you've written down? I think that's the idea, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the writing element. Yeah, I didn't think of that, but one. Yeah, it makes sense. Certainly, listening and then yeah, writing down what you hear. Okay, that's it. That's a good idea.
Mm, mm.
I didn't think of that you should do it like that way. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be
Oh,
quite useful, wouldn't it? Because then you get used to again. I mean, I suppose it's coming down to this spelling idea, isn't it? I was going to ask you, do you think a lot of the spelling is that? I mean, it's a bit of a tangent here. Is that because of the mix, maybe the influence of French or Dutch and things like that? Do you think that's why our spelling's a bit
there
weird?
are a huge number of reasons. One is the great vowel shift.
Ooh,
The
okay.
great vowel shift, which we could do a
Sounds
special
dramatic.
podcast on the great vowel shift. But this was like in when is it now? I believe like 1400 and 1700, where the vowels literally changed, but a lot of the spelling was set before the great vowel shift or just at the beginning. So uh, they reflect, so the spelling reflects what happened before that. So a word like uh, great, Great, or break, as in used to be pronounced greet, and break used to be pronounced break, and that's why, like meat, you see, and
Hmm.
meat is spelled like that.
Hmm.
So some of them were affected. Some of those EAK ones were affected by the Great Vowel Shift, and some others. Maybe I shouldn't go into this too much because it's a very, very big topic.
Well,
But
I
that's one reason. There are a huge number of reasons why the spelling is different there, and we could do a whole topic on that. We could do that.
Okay, maybe we can do that next time. So, I mean, I think touching on it is probably a good idea that we've given somebody a bit of a window as to why that's the case.
You also get just one example. You also got these um, uh, grammarians, linguists, whatever you call them, um, in the before, because before, like Elizabethan times, people just wrote how it sounded. It was more phonetic.
hmm,
Everyone had a different spelling. They just wrote how it was. But then the spelling got fixed, and some of these people said, okay, we've got to indicate where the word comes from. So debt was written DETT, debt, how it's written. But some of this, well, it comes from Latin, debitus. So we should reflect that in the spelling. So let's put a B in. He goes, why is there no B in it though? Why is it put B? No, let's put B. Everyone will know it comes from debitus. So that's another crazy thing about English spelling. There are lots more reasons, but yeah.
wow. Okay, but I think that gives us a brief insight, and that in itself is interesting. So let's let's say that we're going to do an episode on that because I think that will be very interesting
Yeah,
for a lot of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, can we add anything more on listen and write? I mean, it's
It
pretty
sounds,
much.
I would say that sounds a bit boring.
Hmm. Okay. How would you spice it up?
sometimes, sometimes you got to think: are people actually going to do that? I
Yeah,
mean,
good
are you
question.
going to actually? Because I learning pronunciation, yeah, it's there. There are some good advice, but sometimes it's not. practical. Maybe it is for you. It depends who you are.
Hmm.
Um, but to sit down, listen, and to write exactly what you hear all the time, I think that sounds like quite a boring exercise. I wouldn't do that in class. I don't think. Sounds.
No. Yeah, I
That's
think
my only objection to it.
yeah.
Um,
I suppose that's it, isn't it? A lot of the time with all these things, it's what you find interesting and what you like. I mean, there might be some people that enjoy that, and it might be their thing, you know. So if you do, then
yeah,
kind of give it a go. I suppose that's the key,
I,
isn't it? Really.
I would say more practical. You should listen and put on the subtitles,
Hmm.
um, so you can see how the words are written, words what's said and what's written. But on a
Yeah,
day-to-day basis, that's quite useful.
yeah. I think the
Or if you're
one
listening to a song, you can, you know, see the lyrics at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good one, isn't it? I mean, I think any time you're doing those things and maybe if you want to get a bit more involved, it's recording yourself, isn't it? And people hate doing this. I mean, I remember when we started doing the podcast episodes, probably for the first year, I hated my voice. And but everybody
Oh,
hates their
absolutely.
voice.
Everyone does, including myself. I still, everyone, even though I've, you know, made countless videos, I still don't like seeing myself and listening to myself. It
Yeah,
sounds strange,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's not. But you have to do it. Just do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to get used to it, don't you? And I think if you can get into the habit of recording your voice, trying to make it sound like what you're listening to, right? So try and emulate something in terms of the rhythm, maybe I don't know, with an audio book or a book that you're reading, try and copy what the audio book presenter or narrator is saying.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, recording yourself absolutely does work. Yeah, you can compare it to. There's also this thing called shadowing, isn't it?
Hmm.
Where you listen to somebody and then you just literally repeat what they say, and that helps not only with the pronunciation but also with maybe the grammar and vocabulary, stuff like that. Yeah, that. Well, some people like it, some people don't. But recording yourself is effective. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think it's always effective, isn't it? I mean, there was a one stage further that they were talking about is on Preply, they were talking about the idea of narrating your life, which I thought was a little bit extreme, but
What?
it's
What does that
yes.
mean?
So the idea is like, for example, you say what you're doing. It's like I am now clicking my mouse. I am opening a website. So it's basically narrating everything that you're doing, and the idea is that you get used to, I don't know, I suppose speaking regularly.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose if you have flatmates, you've got to warn them that you're going to do that. Otherwise, they're going to think you're slightly mad. But
I think of these things. I'm not saying it's bad. It's probably a good idea. It probably works. Once again, my only objection is the practicality of it.
mhm,
I mean, in real life, if you've got a flatmate who's an English speaker and you talk with them, that's going to happen. And yeah, you listen to them, you talk to them, that's just more practical.
mhm,
Because I don't know how long you can keep it up. Like, is it like for 1 hour you're narrating your life, 1 day, a month? I don't know.
yeah, I think if you're narrating your life for a long period of time, you'd probably send you a bit crazy. I imagine.
You know, if you live stream it so other people can see it, that's what
Yeah.
people do. That
Do
should
they
be
do
fun.
that? Do they do that?
I'm
Do
sure
people
somebody does it
do,
somewhere.
do people watch it?
Okay, okay, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm having a glass of water now. I'm clicking on my mouse now. I'm scratching my hair now. Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Leave
Well,
a comment below.
maybe that could be your third channel. You could.
Me doing boring things.
Well,
Yeah, .com.
perhaps people just like the sound of your voice and your face, so maybe it will work. Could be your way
Is
of
it
making.
ASMR, isn't it? These people that just have a sort of soft, uh, sultry, gravelly voice, whatever it is, and
Just like
people
yours.
just
Just
listen
like
to it for
yours.
the sound.
Yeah.
It-
Yeah.
Like, yes, and now, John, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Would you like some coffee? So maybe get those. Some of these videos get millions of hits. So maybe
Yeah.
that's
Well,
future for you. Maybe that's what you can do.
yeah, some people
John,
do.
John's sultry voice.
Well,
Like and subscribe.
I think people are more likely to go for yours, but there
Mm.
are some podcasts out there without mentioning any names that probably do that, aren't there? So, well,
You
that's
don't know any names.
I I do know names,
You
but
need to listen to them. Why is
well,
that how you get? Is
well,
that how you?
maybe that's how I entertain myself. But
I
let's
can. Can I mention a name? Are we
yes,
allowed to chat, John, or do we have to stick to topic?
no, we could talk about it as long as it's not too controversial.
Um, because uh, it's not controversial at all. But I do suffer a bit from insomnia.
Hmm.
All my life I had a bit of insomnia, and so sometimes when I can't sleep, I'll listen to podcasts. If I listen to yours, I'll go to sleep immediately. But if it's not yours, there's one YouTube guy who he's a very famous guy. His name is a coffee guy. He's called James Hoffman,
Hmm.
and I don't know. He's very good and really interesting. There's something in his voice. So if I start listening to him, I start to fall asleep.
Mm.
So if I put I can't sleep now. I've got insomnia. I had a double espresso. I shouldn't have had that before I went to bed. I'll put on some James Hoffman.
Mm.
And today we're going to talk about coffee. I've got 400 types of coffee today, and I'm going to sip them and rate them on a scale of 1 to 99. I'm
So,
asleep.
yeah, so these people probably earn millions of pounds from insomniacs,
Maybe
essentially.
that's why, because he's got like millions of subscribers. I don't know how many of them are, people listening for the same motives as I am, Rod, which is ironic because coffee keeps you awake. So
Yes.
there's kind of an irony. And his coffee videos put me to sleep, but he's very good.
Okay. Excellent. Maybe he can sponsor one of your videos in future.
Yeah, if you're watching, James, love the coffee. Please do sponsor whatever.
I love your voice as well. Yeah.
Your voice, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that is one of the reasons why, yeah, people do listen. That's very true. I mean, I suppose we need to focus on confusing sounds as well, don't we? That's probably a good thing to do. Because I guess there are confusing sounds, particularly long and short vowels in English. We probably, it's probably a good starting point, isn't it? I would say, particularly, I'm going to pick on French speakers, French native speakers. Often vowel sounds in English can be quite a challenge, I think, for French native speakers, just in terms of it not necessarily
Um,
being open enough or long enough.
I would say, well, because I teach in France, I would say that sometimes the vowels, the French are not that bad because there are lots of French vowels. Like Spanish, they have only 5 vowels and 5 diphthongs in diphthongs. I keep saying that word wrongly for some reason. Diphthongs in the language, so they don't have all the sounds that we do. So maybe it's more of a challenge.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so they just defer to what they know.
But
But yeah,
it's kind of combining or looking at the two different ones in terms of long and short, isn't it? So, like for example, you've got leave, which is obviously a long sound, and then you've got live, which is a
yeah,
very
exactly,
short
exactly.
sound.
I mean, definitely there are, uh, yeah, ship and sheep,
Hmm.
the stuff like that. Of course,
Yeah,
ship,
and I think
chip and
that
cheap.
yeah, they're always very good to practice, aren't they? And I mean, I think it's a lot of it's to some extent about repetition, isn't it? Really, and again, you can record yourself with these. But
Yeah,
I think
and I want to bring up a point here. It's an important point. It might require a bit of swearing. um, which the remember, most of the time you can think in context, you understand. So people are always joking. Well, don't you say don't you- I want I spent some time on the beach, but and people are afraid they're going to say the wrong word. But no, from the context, we're going to know. No one's going to laugh at you. I think I don't like these videos that say, "Oh, you said something. You said shit instead of sheet." Everyone's going to laugh at you, and you're going to be humiliated. No, that's not the case. Because she said, "I'm going to put I'm just going to put a shit on the bed." Okay, if you've got a stupid mind, you might laugh at that, but really, we don't notice that. It's just the context is clear.
Yeah,
So I really want to stress, yeah, that don't you're not going to be humiliated. Don't just carry on speaking, and it's just no one's going to notice these things.
yeah, it's important to say that, isn't it? Because it is about context, and I suppose with these things, it's about the humorous element, isn't it? I mean, I suppose people are talking about them because it's funny, isn't it? To
It
some
sounds
extent.
funny. You said bitch instead of beach. It sounds funny. So you make 120 videos on the same or on the same subject or how to pronounce it correctly, but nobody cares. I think even Australians, I think it sounds when they say it sounds to me a bit like a bitch anyway.
Hmm,
So
great.
yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, you shouldn't worry about it, should you? It's but if you can make that differentiation in terms of, yeah, recording yourself and try and practice those elements, but yeah, don't get too upset about it
Yeah,
or get too involved.
I've actually had a student who will not say the word can't.
Hmm,
They always say cannot
hmm,
because they fear that they're going to mispronounce can't as a rude English word, which is kind of totally ridiculous. No one's going to notice.
yeah.
Like, we say country.
Hmm. Sure.
Nobody picks up on that. That sounds like a rude word, but it's just completely ridiculous. So calm down.
Yeah, that's the best piece of advice I think in part of this podcast. Just calm down. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Because I think pretty much everybody, I mean, let's be honest, it's very rare, isn't it, for people who are learning your language and regardless of your nationality, for you to want them not to do that and not to encourage them. I mean, I think naturally as people, like any
Yeah,
nationality, we're encouraging, aren't we? We want people to succeed. So, I think it'd be very, very, very rare for anybody to think about ridiculing you. So yeah.
yeah. But people like teachers, they want a fire because they can talk about it, so they'll exaggerate some of the hazards of mispronouncing.
Hmm.
Um, it's all fine.
It's all fine. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Of course,
Okay.
you should focus on trying to get the pronunciation clear and understandable, but usually context is okay if it's not 100% perfect.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, the other thing they were talking about is maybe the R and the L sound. So yeah, I suppose that can be quite difficult.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
For I think for Japanese speakers and Chinese speakers particularly,
Yes. Yeah.
um, they'll have that difficulty.
Yeah. So I think that's worth
I
practicing.
I can be a bit mean here. Um, that I'm going to be mean. I'm not normally mean, but but just to give to show you that it is important to to get the pronunciation as correct as you can. But I did meet a Japanese woman, and she told me that she used to live in an English town called Crawley, and what? Crawley, and I couldn't work it out what it was. You know what it was, John?
Crawley.
Crawley, yeah, but she said it in such a way, Crawley. I don't know where that is. Where is it?
Yeah.
And I think it was a bit embarrassing for her. I didn't understand, and I just being like, yeah. So yeah,
So
it is
yeah.
important. So I say don't you don't need to sound like a native speaker, no, but yeah, make sure that you can get understood. That's
Well, there are
that's the
so
minimum.
yeah. I guess it's being aware, isn't it, to some extent, of different sounds that you might find more challenging. So yeah, it's focusing on those elements, isn't it? I mean, also they're talking about kind of consonant clusters. So yeah, I mean, often people would say clothes instead of clothes. So I guess, for us, it's just like one
I
sound, isn't it?
I would say that most native speakers, if you listen closely, they say close with an S.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe about 50%, maybe 39%, say close. I close the door.
Mm.
And I
But I,
think
s-
I say,
I was
what do you
talking
say?
about clothes.
Yeah, what you put
Or
on,
yeah,
what you
exactly.
wear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
clothes. I put on my clothes.
Yeah, clothes.
Yeah, you're saying it correctly. But I think most people say like it closed. Like I put my clothes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Don't you
I haven't
think?
really.
You listen, you listen carefully.
Maybe
Most
I
people
haven't
say that.
really thought about
And
that.
some people, I think myself, I'm from London, so sometimes I think I say like a V, clothes.
Oh, maybe.
That's my London accent coming out a little bit.
Well, but this is a key to saying don't sound like a native speaker, isn't it? Because we're not always pronouncing things
Exactly.
accurately.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true. You sound like a native. What native speaker?
Yeah, which one? Like somebody
Yeah.
from London. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's you know, just basically you should put a disclaimer on all your videos saying, yeah, don't try and sound like me. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Sound like a native speaker, but not me.
not me, just not this one.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
There you are. You got a title for this video.
that's true. That's true. I think that could be a good title. I like that
Yeah.
title.
Mm.
Excellent. Okay. Well, let's have a look through a few more. So we talked about phonetics. They talked about phonemes. Do you say phonemes? Is that how you would pronounce it? Is that
Yeah.
um I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
what are they?
phonemes is specific to a language. So
Hmm.
it's sort of English phonemes, and phonetics is sort of international. I think I got that right.
Hmm. Okay.
Someone tell you. They'll get it wrong. So phonetics is for all languages,
Right.
but phonemes are for your language. And I think they might coincide a lot of the time.
What is a phoneme though?
A sound.
It's
There's a
just a
sound.
sound. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just focusing on the correct sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The
So the
next one.
phonemic alphabet is not the
Hmm.
same as phonetic alphabet. The English phonemic alphabet would just consist of the sounds that we use in English.
Okay, so like
Phonetic alphabet is international.
shush. Okay, okay,
Yeah, there's
okay.
no
That
like the hosa clicking sound, for example, in the English phonetic alphabet.
yes.
But
Okay.
we have a lot of
Okay.
sounds though in English.
Yeah.
We have a lot
Well,
of sounds.
but that makes sense. So yeah, it's focusing on those specific sounds to the language itself.
Yeah.
Okay, they're talking about listening to English language podcasts. I mean, yeah, everybody's listening to this podcast. It's probably
You,
going to help.
it's probably they should be listened to English podcasts. Should be listening to your podcast.
Yeah, and
Listen to English with Monty
occasionally yours,
and
occasionally yours.
occasionally mine. Yeah,
Yeah,
but nothing else
yeah. Only
in
anything
in
that
bold capital letters with three
yeah.
exclamation points afterwards. Nothing
Basically,
else.
basically just things that me and Gideon do, or Gideon and I do, I should say.
Basically,
Really, yeah. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. So
basically.
I think it can be useful, can't it? I mean, I think listening to podcasts, you become familiar, obviously, with English, how it's really spoken. That's the key, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's interesting how uh, podcasts have become so huge recently. Everybody is listening to podcasts. I think a few years ago, people were watching TV, people were, I don't know what they're doing. Um, but now podcasts, they're the big thing.
yeah, podcast with
You should
videos.
start one up.
I,
On,
I should.
yeah.
Don't know why I haven't thought about that. And okay, yeah, but I guess as well you can kind of slow it down, especially if it's on a video. I'm not sure if you can do that on a podcast. I think some applications when you're listening on a podcast, you can slow it down, I think. So,
Yeah.
slowing it down can be quite useful, can't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know. Yeah, you can. I think in on YouTube you can slow things down or speed things up. I
Hmm.
think most people speed things up to 1.5 or something because they're in a hurry. Everyone's in a hurry these days.
Oh, yeah, clearly. They need to learn English quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah. What
Um,
what about speaking slowly? I mean, this is one of them. How does speaking slowly help you? I suppose it's more about, I don't know, thinking about how you're forming your mouth, isn't it? Um, yeah. I mean,
maybe for particular words that you need to get, you can repeat it so you get this kind of muscle memory. But generally, I'd say not particularly. I wouldn't have conversations where I'm speaking slowly. That would be very annoying for other
hmm.
people.
It would, and I'm guessing you'd probably get into the habit of doing it, wouldn't you? And it would probably be very frustrating for people after a little while. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, you can try it a little bit, I guess. Yeah, it's just making more aware of your mouth movements, isn't it? I mean, maybe something like researching, your mouth and tongue positioning that can be quite useful, and try and emulate it in some
yeah.
way.
You know, there's some new. I haven't used it actually, but there is technology where you can record yourself or you hear somebody else's recording, you record yourself, and then you get the what's it called, the sound waves, chick 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 chick, and you can compare yours to theirs.
Hmm.
You see what I mean? And then the idea is to come as close as possible to the pronunciation of the native speaker.
Yeah, which is quite a
I
nice
haven't
thing
used that
to do.
myself. It's been recommended to me. It sounds like a
Okay.
good idea.
It does sound like a good idea, doesn't it? Because I
So
guess,
instead of looking at the words, you look at the graph and how close you're getting on the graph of the sound waves.
oh, I like that. That sounds pretty cool.
Mm.
Yeah, I might have to try that for other languages. But yeah, that's quite a nice way of doing things, isn't it? Because it's a bit of a challenge, and you can see how accurate you are in that case, can't you? Right? That's quite nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool. Cool. Okay. Well, moving on. I suppose we spoke to sorry, we've spoken about, yeah, maybe with native speakers. I mean, if you have the opportunity, obviously try and spend at least 5 or 10 minutes a day with a native speaker if you can do. I mean, obviously that can be with the language exchange, but yeah, I mean, we're gonna have obviously have to give the best advice in terms of a tutor, a teacher. Really, I suppose that's the best way of doing it, isn't it? But obviously, if you have a flatmate, who you can speak to, I think that can be quite useful.
yeah,
And
yeah. These are
five.
all tips. If I can add one more,
Mhm.
if it's a final one, or how we're going with this, John. But uh, we have focused on the pronunciation of words. Okay, but it's really important the intonation um, and the words and the stress, sentence stress in English. That's super important. And there's lots more other things like weak forms you can learn. But if you learn sentence stress, like for example, in English, as in other languages, all the words are stressed equally. But the thing about English is you stress only the important words. Well, I think I was trying. Uh, so, for example, um, I want a coffee and buy tomatoes. It's not a very good example, but but you stress it. Uh, the stressing. Are you going to? Are you going to get a coffee? Are you going to get a coffee? So the words that aren't important are not stress. Are you? They're weak. Going to get. But the words that are important. So you can understand the sentence just by hearing one word or two words, and the rest is like almost forgotten. Okay, other languages, like I know Spanish, like each word has equal, you know, it's stressed equally. There's no priority for the word. Of course, you can't stress one word, but in English, sentence stress. is so important.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And
Like
we
all the like prepositions and things like that, you have the weak forms, and they are hardly said at all. Are you? Are you? Are you? You know, you'd minimize it, so it's hardly heard at all. And this is what I think people learning English find difficult.
it is difficult, isn't it? You're right. And
I
it's
gave very bad examples. I think of it. I didn't. I wasn't prepared
oh, wait,
for that.
but I don't think it's too bad. I think people understand what you're driving at, what you're trying to demonstrate, because I think it is, yes, it's thinking about the rhythm of the language, isn't it, and what is highlighted. And I think if you think about the intonation a bit more and the music of the language, then it probably helps with your listening skills to some extent, doesn't it? Because it helps you listen out for what's important inside the sentence. And then
Absolutely.
yeah, and then
Okay,
also
can I give a? Sorry, John, to
yeah,
interrupt you.
go
Can
on,
I?
go on.
I thought of a better example.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Okay. Are you going to buy some tomatoes? So are you going to that those are not important to the sentence. Buy is important
Hmm.
and tomatoes is important. So the thing is buy tomatoes.
Hmm.
So are you going to buy some tomatoes? So buy into to some are you or you know less stressed or not stressed at all in the sentence. They become almost irrelevant. So that's how we do things in English. And that's really difficult for people learning English.
Yeah,
A
it is
non-native
difficult.
speaker
Yeah.
learning it speaking was, are you going to buy some tomatoes? Let's say them each word like that. Is that better?
That was much better. I
Okay.
yeah.
Took me a while to think of a good example.
It is a pretty good example. I'm probably not going to buy some tomatoes because I'm not sure if I had time, but I mean it's something, as you say, that people when they're learning, yeah, they don't have that focus, do they? They don't put the focus on certain words. And I guess we do unconsciously put that stress on maybe verbs and nouns, don't we? But because they're more what we're
Exactly.
trying to
Exactly.
emphasize.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly. I mean, some
that's
languages
curious.
you don't even say these words. I think some of those Asian languages, it's all about context.
Hmm.
So you don't need to say I, you, he. You don't need the pronouns unless there's any ambiguity. Anyway, we're not going into those languages today, but English, you do say them, but you just weaken them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Are
that's
you becomes
mm, yeah,
going
yeah.
to,
That
you know,
yeah,
yeah,
that is confusing for people, though, isn't it? But it's listening to those elements, I guess. Yeah, following that rhythm.
yeah. So, I mean, we've already gone over 2 points, pronunciation of words and the sentence stress. I'm sure there's a lot more.
Yeah.
Those are two things to get
I, I
started on.
I guess those are the two main things, aren't they? Really. But I mean, is there anything else you want to add at all? I mean, I suppose tongue twisters. I have a feeling you're not going to enjoy the idea of tongue twisters. You probably think
Who
I
said
seem to.
that? Tongue
I
twisters.
yeah
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. That's another thing that it's a bit of fun. I'm not sure how it's going to help. Is
yeah.
that what they recommend on this website you were
Well,
looking at?
they say try it. I mean, I guess tongue twisters is about yeah. It's obviously they're kind of silly sentences that are difficult to pronounce, aren't they? Or extremely hard to pronounce in some cases. I mean, the idea is that it helps you exercise your mouth and tongue muscles. So, I, yeah.
Really?
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know. That's what it says
They're a
here.
bit of fun, tongue
Uh,
twisters, I'm sure.
yeah. I mean, I guess if you enjoy them and you want to get
Yeah.
into them and you find it useful again,
It's not a game
then
changer
no.
if you say she sells seashells on the seashore. That's
You
not a
have
game
it.
changer.
Yeah. Or Roger ran round the ragged rock. I mean, even for native
Yeah.
speakers, they're pretty hard to say, aren't they? I
Yeah,
mean, we get
exactly.
confused
Exactly.
ourselves. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Because I guess we probably
Oh,
should wrap up.
okay. There's probably more, but I can't. I think we've covered a lot, John. A
We
lot.
we have covered a lot. That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Do
Yeah.
you do you want to say anything about your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I've got lots of pronunciation videos on my YouTube channel, Let Them Talk TV. They are utterly fantastic.
Excellent.
Do check them out. A lot and more
A
to
lot,
come.
a
Mm.
lot, and on repeat. So
Yeah, watch them all.
watch them all. Well, I think with all these things, it's always useful to look at different outlets as long as it's just me and you. So that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So, well, thanks for joining me, Gideon. It's been a real pleasure, and I think it's been a good insight. And I'm sure people will have a better idea of how to improve their pronunciation now. So,
I hope so.
yeah. Thank you very much. And you've been listening to English with Monty.